Hello. Hi. So I just wanted to do a little video about ayahuasca. Because I think when I tried looking on the internet, like it's mainly all positive stuff that comes up. And I do know quite a lot of people who've done it. And I met a guy once as well who'd been like the kind of photographer and cameraman for like 2 years out somewhere in South America, like Peru or somewhere. And so he'd seen a lot of all the different ceremonies and had like quite an interesting take on it. So yeah, if I start what he said, it was at Castlevig Stone Circle. I met him at one of the solstices, and I don't know, he was like right in his 30s, and he said he went there obviously with the view that it was a great thing, because he'd heard all the positive stories. I think he did it himself. He'd always wanted to do it, and then he got this job where he was offered to stay on living there, like a dream job, doing all the photography. But what he found was the guy running it, the kind of shaman, over time he kind of started to see that he wasn't just helping other people. He was actually like a drug addict himself, basically, and used ayahuasca a bit too much himself, but also other drugs. And it was like his excuse was that it was all to do with being a shaman, but it's kind of the perfect cover, isn't it, for a drug addict. So yeah, that was something he observed. And also he just thought that in the end, maybe it just wasn't really something he wanted to be involved in anymore. So if you just go for a week and you have a good experience, you'll come back and tell everyone how amazing it was. But if you're there longer term and you see these people for real, maybe you would have a different take on it. And also I wanted to say that, another few bad stories. I have heard some good stories. I've got friends who've done it and say, oh, they got to the depth of their problems and subconscious, and had conversations with themselves and addressed things that they would never, ever have addressed otherwise. So it can really help people. But then there are those cases where it's gone wrong. And one of them was someone who'd not died physically, but I met a girl at a retreat and she'd done it when she was quite young. I think probably only about, 18, 19. So a lot of these people do it very young. And, probably don't really look into it that much, and maybe haven't taken many drugs before, or even any drugs before, I don't know in her case, but maybe she had a bit too strong a dose. This is the other thing about the dosage, how do they really get it quite right? Everyone's different. And she ended up kind of thinking mentally like she kind of faced her own death, but in a way that it was like a part of her really had died. And maybe it was like she was trapped in between worlds. I'm not sure exactly, but I know that it led to a lot of mental health problems for her. And she had years and years of therapy because it was like a part of her had actually died. So she found it hard to come back to reality and actually maybe be back in her own body and have, a normal kind of life again. So yeah, that's one story. And also there was another story of a young lad who, one of his friends had gone out there. Four young lads had gone out there together when they were, again, only about 18, 19. And I think basically what happened is that one of them had a bad reaction, which anyone can have a bad reaction to any drug. There's nothing guaranteed, is there? Even like coffee and, antibiotics, penicillin. My cousin's allergic to penicillin. So, people can have a bad reaction. And if the person in charge isn't very responsible or doesn't know what to do, then it can go very wrong. Also, there's a lot of vomiting involved. That really puts me off. So everyone that's done it says you are sick, you are going to vomit. And that's not a very appealing thing, but also quite dangerous, because if you're vomiting and there isn't someone to look after you properly, then you could choke. So that's another issue. So in this lad's case, I think he'd had a very bad reaction. Maybe the vomiting had carried on for too long and no one was watching him enough. I don't know. But he was found dead. And basically, the shaman or whoever it was supposed to be in charge just didn't know what to do and ran away. So then the other three lads that were his friends came around and out of their whatever state they were in and had to deal with their friend's body, and in another country, and try and tell parents and try and sort it all out. Can you imagine at that age how traumatic that is? So yeah, this is a true story from someone that actually knew these lads. So there are things that can go wrong. But as I say, I do know a lot of people who've done it and will love it. But the other thing is they can also get a little bit too into it. So one of my friends who's done it, I think maybe 2 or 3 times, she was, when she was younger, quite into drugs. And you do get certain personalities that will do things to excess. So I think if you know you're that kind of person, and you do have to be careful. I think it is supposed to be like a one-off thing, like a ceremonial thing, or something you do possibly, once a year at the most. But if you're doing it any more than that, I think, are you just actually kind of using it as a recreational drug type of thing, or just, putting a bit too much focus on that? And there are lots of other ways you can help yourself spiritually and mentally and psychologically without relying on any drug, even though it is natural. Yeah, there's lots of drugs that are natural, but they can also cause some issues for people and become addictive. So yeah, it doesn't suit everybody. And I think if you're doing it for the first time, you should be very cautious to have a small dose and really, really research where you're doing it and make sure the person who says they're a shaman has actually got some kind of experience and level of responsibility, as well, because anything can happen. And yeah, maybe there needs to be, I don't know, more regulation over these things or something. But then I suppose, that kind of goes against the whole free spiritual side. But I don't know, I'm not sure. But I wouldn't do it myself anyway, having heard what I've heard from people. And like I said, the sickness thing just really does not appeal to me at all. So research it, really think about it, take a very small dose, I think. And think about your BMI. If you're a woman, if you're a girl, you have a smaller BMI. Even if you're a guy, you might be skinnier than your friends, or just think about that. Or maybe ask to try a tiny bit, just to see if you do have a reaction. Like even when you're dyeing your hair, they always say, oh, do a strand test first, because you never know. So yeah, maybe there should be something like that where people do have a tiny bit of it and just see if it reacts in some way. But anyway, sorry to put a bit of a downer on it if you're thinking of doing it.